Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. As we continue coverage of the precious metals world, in my pledge to make Steve Sable proud, like the ESPN of silver, and from time to time, we'll even go to the other side and talk a little gold today. And fortunately, joined by my dear friend Rafi the Wise Farber, calling from Israel today. It's almost bedtime there, but Rafi, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you, Chris?
I'm fantastic. And as you you asked if I knew I was still wearing my towel, and I do. And the explanation for that is that I was reading this book. It's quite fantastic. The Conspiracy Against the Dollar. Come on, green screen. Well, you can see the dollar on the bottom, and you get up. There we go. The Conspiracy Against the Dollar. Wasn't making it up like, I won't name names today. I'm gonna get past my rivals in the silver space that I giggle at and stay focused on the positive. But in either case, they were referencing some of the great history. This book is quite sensational. Rafi, in fact, if you can email me your mailing address, I would love to buy you a copy. I mean, some wild things that he digs into here. Of course, Richard Nixon and closing the gold window. And that's one of those things where, people have heard it, they know about it, but then, every couple of years, it's worth watching again as you learn more about how ridiculous all this stuff is. And so I'm watching it on the way out to the pool. And I'm sitting there in the pool, everyone's like swimming, and I'm sitting there listening to Nixon, giggling at some of the wild things he says. And they were so special. I know I could not stay focused on enjoying the pool. I had to come share these thoughts. Rafi is joining me. So what do you think about that, sir?
What I find very amusing is when a politician tries to say something technical in a way that makes sense, but he can't do it. Usually political speeches are just blathering nothingness that are, designed to just tickle your emotions or whatever feelings you may have. But here, Nixon is trying to say something technical, but he's failing. I don't think anyone can come out of this speech and say, wow, that made sense. There's nothing that flows. There's no sense to one sentence isn't connected to the one before it. It's just a bunch of stuff that he just spouts, but there's no logical connection. There's no flow. And that's what's so maddening.
Kind of reminds me of another official's comments we saw lately about gold and silver markets and big events that happened. But Rafi, before we dig, I know I've been giggling at some of the other commentators in the gold and silver world, and I want to get back to my Dale Carnegie. So in offering a positive solution before we giggle at Richard Nixon's Nixonomics, I came up with that also on the way to the pool. Hashtag Nixonomics. Rafi, maybe you can get one of your kids to patent that. But to stay on the positive side, just keep a solution in there. When you have Janet Yellen seemingly committed to maintaining the hyperinflation campaign, that leaves me thinking that companies with good management and assets have the potential to make large sums of money. Now, this is not legal financial advice. Arcana is a new sponsor to the show, so I want to give full transparent disclosure. And the reason I mention this today is because Kevin Drover of Arcana is going to be joining me either Tuesday or Wednesday, it's looking like. So thank you to Arcana. And if you'd like to find out more about them, you can check out at arcana.com or just hit the subscribe button, the notification bell.
You're cutting out. I can't hear you.
When
Sorry, I can't hear you, Chris.
Yeah. Rafi, let me know if you can hear me again.
Now I can.
Before we get
Right.
into that, I was just setting this clip up before we get to Tricky Dick. Rafi, would you say that from a technical perspective, this is the tamp down or control the price under the handle chart? Is that what this looks like?
Well, what this looks like to me is another gut punch from the silver squeezers. This is what we got to do. I mean, we don't need to go for a knockout punch. We don't need to like go for an uppercut. Just gradual little punches, to wear them down. Every delivery contract, just come in and buy a whole bunch of ounces. It's cumulative. This is not like, a paper short squeeze where the company can just issue more stock and then, squeeze out the shorts or squeeze out the longs, whatever it is. But silver's it's a physical thing. So you buy it, it's off the market. They can't print more. So you just got to keep doing this every delivery a month, and eventually we'll win. And after when the deliveries the deadline is come and gone for rollover, this is the time for the shorts and the bullion banks to let off the gas, and they have, and the price is spiking. It's not surprising.
Yeah, well, I'll say certainly in my option trading days, which is a study of volatility, I don't remember ever seeing a chart quite like this one. It looked like it was basically flat as a board. Then the price and volatility spiked up quite a bit. And even more than the price got capped and controlled, it looks like the volatility ground to a halt. So extreme volatility between about 8 and 10 a.m. this morning on no news that I am aware of yet. After that, stable market back and forth. But Rafi, speaking of stable markets, let's not tease the audience any longer. Let's dig right in and stop this, because some of the comments are really special and are going to deserve commentary. If you just raise your hand if I haven't stopped it already and you hear something special, you let me know and we'll dig in. Maybe will I have to tell a joke as before the page loads, or?
Well, take notice that when Nixon talks about how the U.S. will be a reliable, trustworthy trading partner, he touches his nose.
All righty. Well, let's take it at my computer a little slow, but there's that stupid spinning colored wheel. But
the third indispensable element in building the new prosperity is closely related to creating new jobs and halting inflation.
All right, 6. I think it was within the 6th second. We're on second 7, but a political staple, the new jobs that are created. I think we're still waiting for those. I was reading something. It seems like new jobs are paying people unemployment checks and stimulus checks. I don't know how the CPI accounts, but let's continue on.
We must protect the position of the American dollar as a pillar of monetary stability around the world. In the past 7 years, there's been an average of one international monetary crisis every year. Now, who gains?
That means we're due, right?
Yeah, we're very due.
These crises. Not the working man, not the investor, not the real producers of wealth. The gainers.
Rafi, you know whose fault it is? Because it's not the working man. Can you take a guess?
It's the speculators.
I mean, the speculators who were the keyboard thumping Reddit rascals of their day. And you see, even Nixon was on to it 50 years before it happened again on Silver Tuesday. But
are the international money speculators.
Yeah!
Because they thrive on crises, they help to create them. In recent weeks, the speculators have been waging an all-out war on the American dollar.
So I don't know if he was referring to the employees of the Federal Reserve, the ones who run the printing press, if that's who when he says speculators, do you think that's what he could mean?
No, he means the people that are trying to buy gold from the gold window and sell dollars. That's what he's talking about. He doesn't like that.
Okay, so this had no connection to the guns and butter, Vietnam War, massive spending while they were trying to.
Sure. Yeah, sure it did. Of course it did.
Oh, okay.
But he doesn't want to say that.
All right, pipe down, speculator. You're the problem over there. Here, the other highlight, also on the way to the pool, I was thinking the guy's nickname was Tricky Dick. So, I mean, in kind of the way the deep state they don't always hide it. I mean, they were given some clues, right?
The strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of that nation's economy.
Okay, as a student of Austrian economics, so Rafi, that may just be an American concept, but is that what a currency is based on? Just so we can make sure we're following accurately here.
No, it could be related to it. Obviously you have to have things to sell in order for your currency to be strong. But what makes a strong currency? Gold backing, fiscal responsibility, and liberty. That's what makes a strong currency.
Oh, well, I guess since he's in the process of closing the gold window here, we'll see
that's not
that
going to do it.
up.
And the American economy is by far the strongest in the world. Accordingly, I have...
Has to close the gold window, so apparently he's from a different school of economic thought as you are, it would seem.
Directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators.
Okay, here's what I don't get, though, and maybe it's like an international thing I can't see outside the American fishbowl. If he wants to defend the dollar against the speculators, and the speculators are selling dollars to buy gold, and he's going to remove the gold backing, which, according to your conspiracy theory logic, is actually what makes a currency valuable. Is that defending the dollar against the speculators, or almost encouraging anyone with common sense who can see what's happening to buy more gold?
Well, he made gold. Wait, when did buying gold in America was still illegal until 1974, right? So it was illegal for anyone to buy actual gold coins except for central banks. Right? Americans weren't allowed to buy any. So, I mean, in a twisted kind of way, he was really saving the dollar because the gold window would have drained all the reserves out of Fort Knox, and then all of the real money backing for the dollar would have been gone. And so I guess in that way he saved the dollar, but he could have just deflated the money supply and stopped printing it, and that would have saved it also. But he chose the thieving way out of it, which is the kind of person he was.
All right, easy, you and your speculators over there.
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into
by the
gold.
way, Connally pops up quite a bit in this book. I'm going to let it sink in for a couple of weeks on that one, but interesting figure.
Or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest.
Whoa! In the interest of monetary stability, is that rivaling Rostin Benham talking about transparency?
This kind of talk, you can interpret it in any way you want to. I mean, this speech was made by focus groups with people, probably pushing buttons when they heard something that they liked, and then putting a bunch of words together that made people clap or feel better, or electrodes tied to their brains and trying to figure out when their emotions would be positives. But none of this makes any sense. I mean, I can't make heads or tails of what he's even saying.
Well, I did just hit the focus group thumbs up button. Rafi, I guess maybe I went to this marketing seminar years ago, and for the speaker on stage, they had the audience lift up this yellow sign that said, yeah, or like this made an impact. So if there's anything that Richard says that would have gotten your focus group, yeah, give me more of that, just raise your hand so people at home can know yeah, that resonated with Rafi the Wise.
The United States. Now, what is this action, which is very technical, what does it mean for you?
Very technical.
Let me lay to rest the bugaboo of...
When he says very technical, is that you're not smart enough to understand this, so I'll just give you the highlights.
Yeah.
He's
saying don't try to understand
devaluation. If you want to buy a foreign car or take a trip abroad, market conditions may cause your dollar to to buy slightly less. But if you are among the overwhelming majority of Americans who buy American-made products in America, your dollar will be worth just as much tomorrow as it is today. The effect of
Rafi, economic explanation for the audience, please, and for me too.
Wait a second. So American-made products in America. So you got to say the word America 3 times in a sentence. That's probably going to, tickle some patriotic brain cells in there. You got to stick in the word America 3 times. That's good.
Twice, but I get what you're saying.
American-made products in America. Oh, it was twice. Okay. Well, it should have been 3. It would have been better if it was 3. I heard 3.
That's why Nixon was president, and you're, still in training. But it's all good. Continue on, please.
What's he talking about? He's talking about it's the same Keynesian fallacy. You got to buy domestic products because you support American jobs. When the fact is, if you're going to save money by buying foreign products, you're going to use that saved money to buy something else and support somebody else's job. So it's the whole broken window fallacy that he doesn't understand. Like saving money is good. It doesn't matter where you buy from. You want more stuff. You want to save money, and that improves your life, and that brings up the standard of living of your life and the life of your city or your town, wherever you live, because it brings up everybody. But if you want to buy like a twice as expensive American car and not save the money, somebody else is going to suffer. That's the reality of it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I was going to say he was giving a half truth, but then you blasted that one away because he's like, hey, if you buy American, everything's going to stay the same, leaving out, all right, anything imported is about to skyrocket. But here's the thing. If Americans all of a sudden, if they can't buy the foreign stuff, and now you have more money chasing American goods, so I would think economically under a non-Nixonian framework, that would still bid prices up. But anyway,
let's just take this in a very simple example. You know how much we're importing from China? The U.S. is importing from China now. You see the ports now. I mean, the trade deficits are at records. Now imagine that all Americans start being patriotic and they refuse to buy any Chinese products at all. Could you imagine the starvation in the streets and the rioting and all like all the pandemonium because people can't get their Chinese stuff? It would be chaos.
Actually, I would re-raise you there, if I may, sir.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what the conditioning is led everyone to believe, and understandably so. And I think, I don't know. I know people think I'm a conspiracy theorist or whatever. Fine, so be it. But I think you can't leave out the impact of the element of fear that is based in everything this government deep state monster does. And hey, would there be, some unhappy people and some change? Sure. But I think rather than people shooting each other and dying in the streets, you'd have people just, hey, there's a piece of land. Here's some seeds, and you would have people, I'll bet people with gold and silver, as they're watching the value of what they have soar, say, oh, all right, well, if we can't get food from international, and I think that's what's beautiful about the Austrian cycle and the free market, that it's really like once you stop smashing your knee with a hammer, it can heal. But the government hammer, fortunately, I think it's getting heavy. And, how long? I mean, it's been 50 years since this. But anyway, we'll continue. Maybe he'll explain that in the next segment.
This action, in other words, will be to stabilize the dollar.
Stabilize the dollar by removing any sort of backing.
Not win us any friends among the international money traders.
I want to hear. I'll rewind a little bit. Can you explain why removing the gold backing from the dollar didn't win us any international monetary friends?
Now, this action will not win us any friends among the international money traders.
Rafi, why do you think that would be?
Well, I mean, they got their dollars thinking that they could redeem them for gold. And now you're saying, no, you can't. You're stuck with the paper. I don't think they'd be too happy about that. And they weren't.
I'll bet they were about as happy as J.P. Morgan's customers the day they read how they got spoofed hundreds of thousands of times.
But our primary concern is with the American workers and with fair competition
Yes.
around the world. To our friends abroad, including the many responsible members of the international banking community who are dedicated to stability.
Okay, we got to take that.
Responsible
Responsible members of the international banking community. I mean, come on now. You got to.
Who is he talking? Like, what are these? What do any of these terms mean? Who is he talking about?
World. To our friends abroad, including the many responsible members of the international banking community who are dedicated to stability and the flow of trade, I give this assurance.
Responsible members of the international banking community, what are dedicated to stable monetary and trade. Wow.
The United States has always been and will continue to be a forward-looking and trustworthy trading partner.
Hey, look at the nose.
Oh, I didn't see it.
That's where he touches his nose, right there.
Will continue to be a forward-looking and trustworthy trading partner. In full cooperation with the International Monetary Fund and those who trade with us.
Buy JP. I'm selling my silver tomorrow to buy JP Morgan stock. Not legal financial advice.
We will press for the necessary reforms to set up an urgently needed new international monetary system. Stability and equal treatment is in everybody's best interest.
Rafi, was whatever he said really in everybody's best interest, or was it kind of going against most people's best interest?
It was in the interest of government insiders who want to keep spending more money but don't have the gold to back the spending. That's whose interest it was in, and that's whose interest it is in now. And we're all about to pay for 50 years of profligacy, let's just say.
Rafi the Wise, again, demonstrating that he does have the government demagoguing decoder ring. So thank you.
Best interest. I am determined that the American dollar must never again be a hostage in the hands of international speculators.
Hostage in the hands of international speculators. Right? I don't think that's my favorite part yet, though, so we'll keep going.
I'm taking one further step to protect the dollar, to improve our balance of payments, and to increase jobs for Americans. As a temporary measure...
Why not while we're at it, right? Just... We're already going to the well. Why not pull up some jobs at the same time, you know? Two birds, one bucket.
I am today imposing an additional tax of 10% on goods imported into the United States. This is a better solution for international trade than direct controls on the amount of imports. This import...
So he's saying that in order for you to have better jobs, I have to steal more money from you, and then you'll be better off. That makes sense.
I believe that was what he said, yes.
Tax is a temporary action. It isn't directed against any other country.
Well, that's interesting. That, and then in the book, The Conspiracy Against the Dollar, may be written by some of the speculators. They also mentioned that this didn't last long. So it's like you had people draining the gold. All heck was breaking loose. And just like you probably only need to do this like a couple weeks or a month or two tops. And I don't know, maybe that's what the CFTC is doing now. I'm not sure, but hopefully we'll hear back soon.
To make certain that American products
and I did just scratch my nose. Now I feel like self-conscious about it. I was serious though. I do hope to hear back soon. Had an itch and I didn't pick it, so there you go. That could have been what happened when he was talking about saving us from the speculators. I'm just saying, you know.
Let's give Tricky Dick the benefit of the doubt.
Exchange rates. When the unfair treatment is ended, the import tax will end as well. As a result of these actions, the product of American labor will be more competitive, and the unfair edge that some of our foreign competition has will be removed. This is a major reason why our trade balance has eroded over the past.
Okay, now there's an
years.
interesting one because he mentioned the trade balance, and again, this, let's see, you probably are right about the age. I remember seeing this when I was younger, and it was one of those funny things you look up a couple decades later after a little life experience, and there's the whole Oliver North thing. Oops, you take it, there we go, Iran-Contra affair. So when they were talking about trading, sometimes there's a lot of moving pieces that I have to even pull the article up, because this was about 10 years later where the administration, despite the Boland Amendment, oh yeah, right there, that specifically prohibited that, used the proceeds of arms sales to Iran. And I heard in another book I recently read, they actually delayed, I believe it was Reagan, wanted the release, possibly not Reagan, but one of them wanted the release of the hostages delayed until the next election cycle was complete. But still, obviously, the terrorists that Iran are, I mean, they seem pretty pissed off ever since they had their government overthrown in the 50s, understandably so, despite, fortunately, they didn't respond with a nuclear weapon, yet it was trading arms to them to fund Contras in Nicaragua. And wasn't a lot of cocaine involved in this circle somehow as well, Rafi?
Oh, yeah, plenty of drugs.
So
drugs and weapons always go together.
I'm not sure. We'll see if there's only about 20 seconds left. Maybe that's what he was referring to. We'll see if he covers that. No, he does not. Oh, but there's excerpts from The Big Short, just carrying on the government tradition. Why don't we watch some Bart Chilton while we're here? Rafi, we will not watch Bart Chilton, although one comment on, because obviously the closing... Yes, and I know some people like the song and some don't. I'm okay with it. But in terms of the Nixon thing, you get a lot of attention on the closing of the gold window. What's mentioned, but perhaps less often, is the price controls. And Rafi, I hope this isn't going to downgrade our friendship or your opinion of me, but amongst the weird things I do in my spare time, I actually did read In My Time by Dick Cheney a couple of years back, which was fascinating. It was like 20 pages in when he was saying what a great thing for American culture and history the Vietnam War was. And I don't know that I expected to agree with the man on much in the book, but he actually describes he was one of the people in the meeting for the price controls. I think it was chapter 3. He's describing it. It's wild because in the same chapter that he accuses Nixon of being one of the nation's great free market thinkers as he sets price controls, they describe Rumsfeld was there, and he describes this you just like pictures like the smoking man from the X-Files, like a bunch of like old white dudes sitting there chain smoking cigarettes, pulling an all-nighter, and they were saying, I'll give you an extra 10 basis points on toupees but I need some ground on the dill pickle lobby. They're powerful people. And I think dill pickles and toupees were two of the examples that he actually cited. And that's in My Time. Rafi, any thoughts about that?
It's always the same circle of people that the Bush family, Dick Cheney, the Clintons, they just keep cycling in through the generations and keep manipulating over and over again. The 70s, the 80s, the 90s. It's the same cycle. It just gets worse and worse. But the last thing I wanted to say was that a lot of us think that Nixon closed the gold window, but he didn't really. He closed it at $35 an ounce. Our job is to close the gold window and to make the dollar no longer convertible into gold or silver at all, so that we can go back to sound money and forget the stupid substitutes so that it can't be inflated anymore. We got to close the gold window for good and make gold and silver money again and forget about the dollar.
Well, Rafi, I would say between your fantastic coverage and the LBMA's special silver report, it seems like that window is closing pretty quickly, as it seems Commissioner Benham expressed in his own words. What would you say to that?
Well, the bullion banks, they're actually trying to
Those
keep it open. They're trying.
scratching by
Yeah,
my
they're
that time.
it's okay. They're trying to keep the gold window open because that sustains the illusion of a strong dollar, of a dollar that is still a monetary reserve. So they try to keep the gold and silver price low, and that keeps the gold window open. But the more we buy, the smaller that window gets. The higher the dollar price, the smaller the window, and eventually it will close for good. And once that happens, you will not be able to get any physical gold or silver at all anymore, and then we'll have to start over.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's essentially what happened in that clip with Nixon. And then, I mean, people wonder, oh, well, the bankers ever going to give up control? I mean, maybe there's been good and evil since the world began. But look at what happened. They probably thought, oh, in 1971, they'll never give it up. And they came up with that scheme. 3 years later, we had COMEX, CFTC, and all that junk. I mean, fine. You know, there's going to be someday they'll run out of metal. And I'm sure that maybe I hope they call it the COMEX Part 2. I think it would be fun. But Rafi, before we wrap up here, there was another thing that was mentioned that I had never heard. I'm curious, maybe you've heard of this or you could keep an eye out for it. But I'm going to read a passage from The Conspiracy Against the Dollar. Oh, and there was actually a great Nixon quote in here, which I think I took a picture of today. But they referenced something called Campaign May. And especially, I'll read what they say about it, and that they were talking about May 1971, not August of 1971. And here we are on the 50-year anniversary. So what was happening in May of 1971? Here you go. If the multinationals have learned to manipulate facts and figures, they have also learned to massage. And when he's talking about the multinationals, he's kind of the Aaron Russo school of thought that, you know, these big companies, ExxonMobil, and that, you know, go to the Trilateral Commission, you know, things like that are influencing a lot of the policies. So that's what he's referring to as the multinationals have learned to manipulate facts and figures. Maybe I guess the Fed would be included in his definition of multinationals. They've also learned to massage the money markets of Europe. By their sheer weight, they can unbalance market forces as they did in the gold crisis in 1967, 1968. By moving, check this out. By moving only small portions of their liquidity into and out of gold at huge profits to themselves. They had tested the waters from time to time and found they could cause waves of speculative fever. Then Campaign May. And he has Campaign May in capital letters as if it was like, you know, Operation Paperclip or something. And even has it quoted, it happened on signal. It was May 1971. The affiliates of the multinationals, armed with dollars, opened their spring offensive. They dropped bombs of dollars on the Europeans, as they had attempted in 1967 and 1968, tried again to rescue the American dollar. The multinationals sent waves and waves of dollars against the central bankers until these bankers were compelled to stop supporting the dollar by giving out high fixed-priced currencies. The time had come to think of their own currencies and what they were doing to their own economies. And after Campaign May, the pace of takeovers by the multinationals of major European companies quickened. Reminds me quite a bit of what G. Edward Griffin described about the Rothschilds funding both sides of the war. Just a lot of themes in there. And perhaps any thoughts on that? Have you ever heard of this Campaign May before?
No, but wait, did I understand it correctly that they were just dumping dollars internationally to get them to stop supporting the dollar, and that was going to strengthen it, or what?
Let me finish the book before being more specific about some of the conclusions he's making. But what I took away from that is that, again, you have, let's say when he says multinationals, think of what today people consider the bankers or the elites, basically using the currency as a weapon. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting. Certainly I see that happening today, and that he was writing about it back then. Although, Rafi, I think we're about almost out of time here today, but because that pool is calling. But I have I did find the quote from Conspiracy Against the Dollar that I had to take a picture of this morning. Perfect note to end this on. So I'll read this, and you can have any final thoughts. Or actually, before we do that, can you tell folks, and I'll pull it up, tell where they can find your incredible research, please.
Yeah, you can find me at The End Game Investor. Just Google it. It'll be the first link. It's on Seeking Alpha. We cover daily the COMEX statistics there, precious metals, bond markets, a little bit of trading, and monetary theory. That's what I cover.
All righty, and perhaps someone in the chat can pop that in there, and Yar, maybe you can put that in the description field below. Now I'm itching. Sorry. Oh, there you go. It's in the darn pool. I was looking for your, while I pulled up Seeking Alpha to get your at least when I type in Seeking Alpha, I either get you or Jeff Curry. So, I mean, you're in powerful company. Let's see. But fortunately, I'm quite honored you gave me that kind gift of a subscription. So I get them via email each day, which makes me feel important. Since my computer's a little slow today, we'll leave that for now. I'll get billed, but I will read you these parting words from The Conspiracy Against the Dollar. Late in 1971, Mr. Nixon, made it known that he would also meet with Soviet leaders in Moscow after his trip to Red China. My God, if there's video of what was actually discussed in those two. But for a working visit with a minimum of ceremony aimed at enhancing the prospects of world peace. So in the midst of freeing us from the dollar, the man was also solving world peace. Rafi, do you just need to go? Are you speechless? Any final comment that you can even utter in the face of such greatness there?
Well, one good thing that Nixon did do was talk to China. It's always good to talk to people. Don't care who they are. There's no problem with talking. Give Nixon that one thing that he did. It opened up China. Now their lives are better. Good for them. They're still communists, at least culturally. But if Nixon hadn't done that, somebody else eventually would have. But good for him. I'll give him that.
Well, there is one of the greatest analysts in the financial world today, showing off his true range and diversity, putting a nice sugar coating, finding a silver lining in that. Rafi, I don't know if you're aware of this, but I am involved. Well, there's someone who owns the Silver Hall of Fame, the website right now. I'm thinking about a special, maybe like the Arcadia Silver. We could have like our own wing that I could pick. With skill like that, I mean, that was a diplomatic silver lining, perfect way to end it. So I thank you for joining me. And again, if you go to Seeking Alpha, the Endgame Investor, that's one of that and GATA, I make sure, yours I always make sure I read GATA if it's a story that, but anything they send out, I mean, how cool, you're a cool guy, but also outsmarting the world, at least in my conspiracy-filled opinion, as that may be. But hey, we're just the ones that think maybe the speculators weren't to blame for Nixon taking us off the dollar. So what do I know? But thank you for joining me. Go get some sleep, and we will check in again with you soon.
All right. Have a good day. Have a good swim.
Will do, buddy.